Welcome to DNF. This is a Formula One podcast. We are sponsored by, this week, Alpine Racing. Alpine Racing now hiring. Openings available. Experience perhaps required. This is your overview of the wide, wonderful, and this week genuinely weird world of F1. Jessica, without further ado, do you think we need to go ahead and just bring a guest in and get straight to it?
Well, first I wanted to say I'm wearing my Alpine pink because I'm auditioning for a job this weekend. I will be your second driver if you'll have me. But yes, we should introduce our guest. His name's Spanners. He hosts my second favorite Formula One show behind this one, of course. And he was recently in Miami for the Miami Grand Prix. We did a little podcast thing together. I went to his live show. His show's called Missed Apex. If you like in-depth Formula One coverage, race reviews, news, that sort of thing, it's great. There's a Patreon. I'm a member of it. There's a Discord channel. It's a whole community. But Spanners, welcome to the show all the way from the UK. We figured out time zones to have you on. Welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I'm going to say don't listen to Missed Apex podcast because you said like in depth. I think too in depth. We prattled on for 20 minutes speculating about Ocon and what's going on behind the scenes and what that meant for the future. And then Alpine go and drop the news this morning as if to personally attack my podcast. So we now know that Esteban Ocon isn't going to be Alpine. But I think a lot of the stuff we covered, a lot of the things going on in the background, the reaction from Bruno Famin and how extreme that was, that's all kind of explained now by the lack of an Ocon future at Alpine. But yeah, I would say when I listen to the American podcasts, I go, oh, yeah, they get to the point. They're succinct. The pace is good. And then I listen to Martin and go, oh, no one should listen to that. We're old school pace of Formula One podcasting, whereas you guys are new, dynamic. Boom. I say stick with this.
You're like a good audiobook, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say there's a couple of American podcasts I need to introduce you to that are more than tangential when it comes to discussing certain sports topics.
Do you know the amount of people that have said to me, don't take this the wrong way, but we fall asleep to Missed Apex podcast, and they're like, no, it's a good thing. I'm saying it doesn't sound like a good thing.
I mean, people fall asleep to all kinds of things. You know, beer's great. Beer's made me sleepy. I plan on drinking more. Therefore, Missed Apex, you know, the beer of podcasts. I'm more than happy with that comparison.
So what are you guys then? I think you guys are like a shot. What's the thing where you have, say, tequila and you dunk it in Red Bull and then you down that? What's that? That's what you guys are.
What is that? A Jaeger bomb? No.
Yeah, Jaeger bomb sounds like it.
That's a hangover.
I don't know what tequila.
That's a hangover waiting to happen.
Like
bad decision accelerant.
Do you call them Irish car bombs in the UK? Because that's a drink here, and I don't know if that culturally translates.
I wouldn't say that again. I wouldn't say it 2 times, but yeah.
Spencer, back me up here.
Yes, that is the name of a drink, not one that I'd say I would order twice, particularly with increasing proximity to Belfast. I would not.
Yeah, I live in a garrison town, and I don't think it's on the menu.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
fair enough.
I have a question for you, Spanners, before we get to Alpine. It is this.
Cool.
You were in Miami. What is your United States experience? And then what is your Miami experience? Notice those are 2 separate questions here.
Yeah, it was amazing because we started off in Miami. I ended up at Darlington to watch the NASCAR. And yeah, your country, there's like whole different parts of your country. So South Beach, different from the rest of Florida. And then as you go to Georgia and Carolina, like massively different. So you go through a town in like Georgia and it will be a really small village, but there's 4 massive churches. And I look around and go, there doesn't feel like there's enough people to all go to this church at the same time. And they're like pointing at each other in a crossroads, almost defensively. So you wonder, are they friends? You know, it's a massive cultural difference. And then in Miami, the thing that really surprised me that you guys might not realize is surprising is your reaction to the flag appearing. Now, wonderful, patriotic, everyone was so excited, but do you guys realize how that seems to outsiders when you have the national anthem end and then the flag comes up and everyone goes absolutely wild and crazy? And I looked around going, oh, am I being monitored? And I faked going wild and crazy as well. But yeah, I mean, you guys, you have fun out loud. You are passionate out loud. The British Reserve is not on show in any way, shape, or form. And I really came away from both NASCAR and from Formula One going, do you know what? These guys have fun out loud on purpose, and I like it.
I'm delighted that you have seen The Lady in Black. This is thrilling to me. Darlington, The Lady in Black. By the way, historically, when people in Europe have just started screaming and yelling at the anthem, it has not gone well.
Oh, right.
So
Yes.
I get that. I get the instinct there. My other question is this: when you were in Miami, did you notice that the local driving style is less Formula One and more rallycross?
Yeah, there's people are offended that you are in a position that they could potentially be in. The lane swapping is crazy. Like, there doesn't seem to be a legitimate like system for the lanes. So it sort of starts out broadly like the British system and what we have in Europe, which is the outside lane is slow, and then if you want to overtake, you go progressively to the inside lanes. But then people get guarded about that, and it's almost like a point of pride. No one wants to be in the outside lane, but no one wants to get undertaken by someone going faster. So the weaving, the blocking, it's a full-on war. And what I found in Miami is that if people use their indicator, that is often a trick. They are luring you into a different lane. It's a trap. They're using you for nefarious purposes. But yeah, it was an experience, I have to say. I got driven round by my co-host Matt, who knew the system and left about 3 inches bumper to bumper. Incredibly frightening. But when I was driving, I just picked the outside lane and I just bimbled along, and people left me alone. Like, people weren't even aware that lane existed, so I kind of had a bit of a VIP lane to myself.
You just poodled around in the right lane.
Just poodling.
Much like Formula One, our
At
overtaking
Monaco.
rules are not super clear to most drivers. I've been told by other people in Miami that using your signal here is a sign of weakness. You're not supposed to let other drivers know what you're thinking at any point. So I think that may have been one of your flaws as well.
Yeah, interesting, because I think in the UK there's a peer pressure, a social pressure to drive correctly, to use your indicators. Obviously doesn't apply to BMWs and Audis, but if you don't do it, people get really upset. Like, if you don't do a turn signal and someone's waiting for you because they assume you're going to go past them, oh, you will get a passive aggressive toot toot of the horn and corrected at traffic lights. What I found here, though, was no one got angry. Like, the crazy things I was seeing, yet there was no road rage at all. And I just wondered, like, everyone just thought it was so normal. No one got annoyed at anyone.
Well, give it a few weeks. I do wonder if there's less road rage in Florida because the threat of someone shooting you is so high that fewer people get angry. But that's a podcast for another day. Things that you think about when you move here. I do want to go back to F1 for a second. You went to the race. You enjoyed Miami. I heard you say that it is, in fact, you had to be there kind of race, and your opinion of it changed a little bit after you saw the track in person. So what are your general thoughts now that, you know, your road trip's over, you're back in the UK, it's been a couple weeks? Like, has the honeymoon period with Miami worn off, or are you still feeling really high on it?
Well, I mean, I fell in love with South Beach, so just for that alone, I would be willing to come back. I think we were lucky in that it was a more interesting race than the previous two that we've had at Miami. Not a massively high bar, but certainly like Lando Norris challenging the duck that Formula One has experienced and shaping things up a bit, and a very well-timed safety car helped build up some excitement. The you had to be there makes you appreciate the facility, and there's no way of knowing how good that facility is from home because they don't tend to show it. But the stadium, the fact that you can go up there, get a really great view. We were watching the Porsche Super Cup practices and qualifying from up there, and you get some quite good viewing angles and get to look down into the paddock as well in the stadium. So a lot of that stuff is really cool, and it can't possibly come across on TV. So it's all fine and well, this attitude of F1 going, well, we've made the in-person experience great. We need to do sprint races so people at the track are entertained. Most people are lucky to get to a race a year. I think you'd be pretty lucky, your average F1 fan, to get to one race a year. And so you pick one even around the world. Over the next 27 years, I'm only going to see one Monaco Grand Prix in person. So that's great, but there's going to be 26 other Miami Grand Prix that I see not in person. So you've still got to worry about that TV experience. And I don't think the TV does the track justice at all, because the newer tracks have just got that kind of Tech Pro lining, and a lot of them look the same. So it could look the same as Vegas, the same as Baku, as Saudi Arabia. But then you come to Monaco, and obviously the scenery's a little different. And they've changed TV companies. It used to be a local TV provider. F1 took over last year and tried to make it, okay, let's get the job done, let's do the same. But then this year, the TV coverage was spectacular. So even though the race was an all-time dud, even for Monaco, it was an all-time dud, it shows that you can do something with inventive TV camera work. So, maybe if the broadcast does a little bit more in showing off what I think is a great venue, it might zhuzh it up a little bit. But yeah, it's hard to separate yourself from the excitement of being there, because you had that moment of Lando Norris being ahead at the safety car, and then you're watching the gap, assuming that Verstappen is going to close it down, and that gradual realization over 4 or 5 laps of, hang on a minute, he's not going to close this gap down, was a massive buzz in the ground. So really hard to separate myself from that. So I'll just do the whole, yeah, you had to be there. What, did you not even fly to another continent and watch Miami? Losers.
Where would you place Miami in comparison to maybe another race that you've been to?
Well, actually, Miami, I guess you could compare it to Imola, which is if you did get a rain shower and you got a rainy Miami, then you might see something a little bit different, a little bit special. So we've got Montreal coming up, and if you've yet to see a wet Montreal Grand Prix, then you're missing out on something spectacular. But if there's no well-timed safety car and no rain at Montreal, you'd be forgiven for going, Montreal's a bit of a dull track. But really, it's an all-time classic F1 track, and some of the all-time classic races have taken place at Montreal, but you need the right conditions. I do think that Miami has been unlucky because you've avoided any rain shower, and that is an area prone to a short, sharp burst of rain, which will dry relatively quickly, which is perfect. And if you'd have hit that on a Grand Prix weekend, you'd have been golden. And then, yeah, I think you've been unlucky the previous 2 years. But this year you had that safety car that made stuff interesting. So it's not as dire as a lot of people have kind of written it off after those 2 events. If you compare it to, say, Barcelona, Imola, tracks that Monza even, and I'll probably get hate mail for that. Email DNF at hatemail.com.
Spencer Hall at Metallurgy.
Yeah, but there's plenty of European tracks that continuously don't have or have a lot of dull races that don't kick off in a row. So, Miami's not unique in that respect.
It's funny that you think I checked my email, Jess. The Montreal track, by the way, FYI, coming up, there is a 50% chance of rain for Sunday and for Saturday at race time. So fingers crossed for a little bit of mayhem. Otherwise, enjoy the aerial shots. It's that track that they built that is one of those tracks where I give a child Sim City and I say, build a racetrack. And they go, put it on the island in the middle. That'll be cool. Right. And that's how I like any track that looks like a kid made it. Right. Monaco's that,
Sim
right?
City.
Like, just put it in the middle of a city. Sure, man.
Oh, is this like an anti-Canadian thing?
No,
is this...
I love it. I know this
sensing...
is a sincere compliment. The more childlike a track is to me, like if there were I don't know if you saw, there was this private track built in Japan that's on top of a mountain, and it's for some motoring club run by a shadowy billionaire, right?
Yes.
It's straight kid engineering where they go, just put it on top of the mountain and then we'll race cars. I love that. I want tracks to be extremely childlike. Canada, though I know the racing is a mixed bag depending on conditions, at least visually, I'm very pleased with the outlandish nature of where this track is and how it's situated.
Yeah, I think it's a good track, and I like to correctly claim that iRacing is basically the same as Formula One driving. So I'm the same as an F1 driver. But you drive that track in the Montreal track on a sim or even on the F1 game. It's a glorious track to run. And this is from someone who thinks all chicanes should be banned. But these aren't the worst chicanes in the world. So you've got a lot of opening chicanes. So the ones in the middle, yeah, you've got a big stop, but you're then pointing and squirting pretty much out of the corner. Not amazing for racing, but then you've got the big stop with a hairpin, a big long straight down to the final chicane, which is a chicane that should get banned and is terrible for racing. And you do get the person who just, I've gone by side by side. Oh no, I've had to run off, but I think I was forced off, so I should get to keep that place. And then there's endless arguments about it. So that kind of closing chicane is terrible. But the actual driving challenge through that chicane and picking your point and getting on it quickly enough to not lose time, but also not hit the wall of champions on the outside, it is a glorious driving experience.
Who is the most likely to hit a groundhog this weekend?
Is there groundhogs in Canada? I can't remember anyone hitting a groundhog in Canada.
You might call them marmots.
Yeah, it's I like it when there's local wildlife like that. In Mount Panorama, they've got a kangaroo flag. So they've got a literal flag, and the drivers have to stop, and the kangaroos have right of way. So in Canada, I guess the groundhogs don't have right of way.
So your answer is
okay. So it depends.
Ocon.
If it's malicious, then you've got to go, who's the most likely to see a groundhog and steer into it? You got to go, well, probably, you've got to say maybe Alonso. I think Alonso might have that moment of, that groundhog has disrespected me. I'll get a little close to it. I think there could be that. Daniel Ricciardo, I have a secret kind of feeling in my gut that he's secretly evil, like Lord Business in the Lego movie.
Yeah.
So, in Lego movie, he's Lord Business. No, he's like Mr. Business or whatever. And
it's but his villain form is Lord Business. Yeah.
Lord Business. Yeah. So I think there's a Lord Ricciardo in the background who I think is capable of steering into a groundhog. If it's lack of skill, is that another one? Lack of skill to avoid.
Certainly.
Who would fail to avoid the groundhog? Well, I think that would be the older drivers, especially if it's overcast and night vision comes into it. So maybe Hamilton and Alonso again, if they might need to have their bifocal visor on.
I was going to say it rhymes with Schmogan Schmargent, but
no,
that was a good answer too.
I'm talking to Americans, and Logan Sargent wasn't the first name that came into my head as far as you know. And
well, I think we've discussed on this pod that Daniel Ricciardo is really the only American driver on the grid, which I think does track with him being evil.
What driver would be more justifiably irritated with wildlife than the Australian driver? Really? Like, consider the environment that he grew up driving in and how many kangaroos and rabbits there are in that place alone.
No, the Australians, they're so blasé about it. It's the opposite. You would think the amount of things that are trying to murder them all the time, they would hate wildlife and animals, but they just accept it. Like, they take more people out than they need for the evening to be a success because they know 2 or 3 of their mates could get eaten by a crocodile or boxed by a kangaroo. So I think it's the opposite. I think if you have maybe the Brits on the grid who would be alarmed because we don't have a lot of wildlife around, so they might be surprised and go, "Who's that small furry gentleman?" So perhaps George Russell getting out of his car and physically beting a groundhog.
No, he would put it in a little top hat. He'd dress it in a bow tie. They'd become friends.
If someone in F1 has to hit a groundhog this weekend, I don't want it to happen. To be clear, rather not have
We are
the loss of animal life. But if it has to happen, and it's already going to happen, I want the radio on, and I want to hear whatever George Russell says when he hits a groundhog.
You know what it'll be. Crikey. Blimey.
Blimey.
Oh, dear.
I hate George Russell for that. He gives away our most Englishness. It's like, no, that's our indoor Englishness. Don't use it out loud.
I've hit a marmot. That's what I want to hear.
You fight against these stereotypes, and then George Russell's there going, crikey, that was close.
He's out there, yeah.
He's out there dressing like James Bond at Wimbledon. Okay, back to Alpine for a second. I know you just recorded a 20-minute podcast segment about it, but do you believe the tweets, the reports that him leaving Alpine at the end of the season really had nothing to do with Monaco, had nothing to do with last weekend? This has been in the works for weeks.
No, I think it's the other way around. The reaction at Monaco, or maybe the tension at Monaco, probably was born out of the fact that they've had something bubbling in the background. No? Does that not make more sense?
So who has something bubbling though, Alpine or Ocon? Is this mutual? Are they both have something bubbling, or has he been planning to leave? Where is he going, etc.?
So in France, I might not be completely accurate on French law, but I believe that if someone slightly irritates you, you can basically do what you want and murder people. That they have crimes of passion in France. So they take into account like the emotions behind it and feel justified to retaliate. Again, not a French law expert, but Bruno Famin's reaction to the Ocon overtake on Gasly, yet zero irritation at Gasly attempting, equally wild moves on the way up to Casino, and actually looking back and having to apologize to my Ocon supporting co-host, because at first I blamed Ocon because I wanted to, but that move into Portier was fine. He got the inside line, he got ahead, and really, under the current stupid rules, it was up to Gasly to kind of duck out, but Gasly was just so belligerent about, no way, you should not have overtaken me, so therefore I'm keeping my foot in and taking us both out. Pretty similar to like Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg 2016, where Hamilton felt, you were in the wrong, you've shut the door on me, I'm on the grass. I don't think he lifted. I don't think he did, what can I do now to avoid the barrier and Nico Rosberg? I think he kept his foot in, because I think when you've been taken out, or you feel like you've been taken out, especially by your teammate, you get a rush of blood. And I think it feels like there was a rush of blood from the Gasly side that kept his foot in. And even if he felt like he was wronged, you could still lift and not have a big crash that flips your teammate up in the air. So I think, Ocon's retaliated for the stuff up to Casino. Gasly's gone, nah, and kept his foot in, when the racing rules really say he should dip out. I don't agree with those rules. I feel like the car on the outside should be entitled to room, but that's not how it's policed nowadays. So why was Famin reacting so angrily to that overtake from Ocon, but not the stuff up to Casino Square, and not Gasly, keeping his foot in? So that screamed instantly of, this guy's on his way out. And I think people were speculating straight away from the team principal's reaction, which was, we may put him in stocks, but we might just settle for hang, drawn and quartered. Like, it was such an extreme reaction. And now it feels more like a jilted lover's reaction. Does that because he'd been dumped, and the world didn't know about it yet, and then he was angry.
I think that's a really interesting read, and also that after he took a stand and made all of those comments, now it's like, see, look how tough we are. Now he's leaving because we won't tolerate this, even though it was probably already in the works before.
Yeah, I have a follow-up on that. I would tend to think if you see an overreaction by an executive, something this dramatic, it's usually from a place of insecurity, which leads to my follow-up. What the hell is Alpine at this point? It kind of feels like an executive flailing and trying to make decisive, dramatic decisions to look like they're in charge, when in fact there's very little they can do to influence the outcome of the season. They're consistently going to run somewhere mid-pack and hit each other if you don't change drivers, right? Or maybe if you do change drivers, because the cars are essentially identical and thus really close and will always be nipping at each other's heels. The ownership is effectively crowdsourced at this point. Everyone's an owner of Alpine or a stakeholder. Spanners, you are. Jess, I know you have shares.
Yeah, I chipped in a couple of quid. Yeah.
I'm actually Travis Kelce.
I put in $50. I'm a shareholder. So I'm not really sure who owns them or runs them at this point. They just feel like a team where there is still some competence and professionalism there on the part of engineering, back end, but everyone else doesn't seem to understand their role. Is that a fair and confused read?
I think it's not unfair enough, because you said there's a lot of competent people left there, and I'm sure there are, but they've lost an awful lot of people. Like, they've bled talent, and they recently sacked their head of operations, whose name is currently escaping me, but they definitely have had an exodus of talent, and the management is unstable. This is their 14th 5-year plan that they're now embarking on. And Renault basically abandoned the team from a branding point of view. And I think really you have to go back to Cyril Abitable's reign there with his 5-year plan. And they were going to push Renault forward as the works team. That was the dream that was being sold. And when it became obvious that for whatever reason it wasn't happening, they go, well, what do? We don't want to pull out because it's become insanely profitable now. It is just a money-making operation. That's why the teams don't want to let Andretti in. why would we let a 10th team come in and just take some of our profit unless they're going to increase the total profit by more than, 11th team's worth, where they probably won't be able to do that single-handedly. So they all just want to protect that profit area. And that's why Andretti want to come in as well, because, you could buy a team now for 600 million and then be worth $1 billion overnight. So Renault don't want to then just pull out and get rid of the money. But the shift from Renault to Alpine, to me, felt like a pretty see-through attempt to distance the Renault brand from it whilst keeping themselves in. Okay, we can keep ourselves in as Alpine, but then Renault isn't the team. Maybe, I don't know, it feels like a bit of pride. Renault isn't the ones that are now lying 8th in the Constructors' Championship, with probably clearly the 8th best car, and organisationally things seem to be falling apart. It's Alpine. And Alpine have a different set of expectations. Whereas now they're talking to these celebrities that have come in. So Ryan Reynolds, Patrick Mahomes, he's a football player, right? The throw football one. Yeah, the football that you play predominantly with your hands. Yep, that one.
Our football.
So it's basically the Wrexham people, Tom Brady, a bunch of people. But then the interesting one has been bringing on Flavio Briatore in a consultant role.
Oh my gosh, let's talk about that. Yes. Yeah. Get on your soapbox. Take these young'uns to school. Let's let them know about Flavio Briatore, because in the midst of all this insanity, they did something really insane.
Yeah, so Flavio Briatore presided over, and I'll say lots of allegedlys, but the 2008 controversy with the Singapore Grand Prix, where they basically used, and I don't think this is alleged anymore, I think this is all fine, they basically used Nelson Piquet Jr. to deliberately crash into a wall, so instructed their driver to deliberately crash into a wall. Just take a second to absorb that. On purpose, drive your very fast race car into the wall. And if you go and look up footage, in retrospect, it really looks obvious. It's such a weird crash because he just stays on the power. I think he gets into the corner, starts accelerating to the corner, but then, a lot of left-hand lock and then a big squirt of juice and just flies into the corner, inside corner on the exit. So that was deliberate, because then Fernando Alonso, his crew or people in the team, no proof that Alonso knew about it, were able to then capitalize on that, and he come out and he'll, and win the race. But that is why Felipe Massa is saying that race should be voided, and therefore he should be the 2008 champion. I don't think he's really got a leg to stand on there. And he also fluffed that race himself. The team managed to leave the fuel hose attached, so he drove out the pit lane with the fuel hose attached. But look, when you've presided over telling a driver to deliberately crash, that feels pretty serious to me, and he got a life ban for it. So that life ban was then overturned a couple of years later, but there was still this feeling in F1 that he shouldn't be involved in Formula One again. And so a lot of people of my generation who, have been around at that time, see this appointment as a bit sketchy, actually. There's a bit, personally, I look at that and I go, I would want to distance myself from someone who had done that. And Alpine have obviously decided that whatever goals they have are more important than the reputational damage of having Briatore there, which instantly leads me to the conclusion that Briatore is a businessman. Has he actually been brought in to kind of broker a takeover? So it could be a takeover of, a group of independents like Genai. If you remember Genai in like the I'm testing myself now here, but at the back before the hybrid era, an investment group, Genai, came in and badged themselves as Lotus, which is it was now the Renault team. So could there be something like that again, where it's an investment group who wants to make money out of Formula One, but then they run Alpine as their title sponsor, or run Renault as the title sponsor, or something like that. But Briatore's involvement isn't going to be to come in and look at the aeroflow. It's going to be something business related.
Well,
which makes you
could
say,
be hiring someone to look at the aeroflow. That's also been rumored, and that person would be, of course, free agent Adrian Newey, Spanners. I don't know if you buy into those rumors or not, but I don't think so either. But that people are trying to connect the dots, because I think, like you already mentioned, it's a very interesting and strange appointment.
It is Yeah, and this is just what makes me think that it's not all in their hands. I don't think they're bringing in Flavio Briatore to save the Alpine brand. It looks like something else.
Let me give you a couple of interesting other facts about Flavio Briatore before we move on. He was the assistant to a guy named Attilio Duto, who was owner of a paint company. Duto died in a car bomb attack in 1979 by an unknown perpetrator, making this the only person I know of in F1 whose boss was blown up in his car. In addition to that, he's got an entire header, a section in his Wikipedia that says convictions and fugitive status. A lot of allegedlys, but I'm just saying, it's a wild ride. And this is the man you're bringing in-house. Alpine.
Yeah.
Alpine, you wild, wild boys.
Yeah. They're not bringing them in to bolster their social media. This is not a,
That's
a
what
PR
Patrick
move.
Mahomes is for. Yeah.
We're guessing. We're definitely guessing. All I'll say is what positive has come out of Alpine this season. It has been all, people leaving, results bad, drivers not getting on. Now I think they've lost Ocon. That's if we have to guess. Should we guess? I guess that he's signed a contract somewhere else.
We talked last week a little bit about the, early silly season driver market because Carlos Sainz is still out there. He hasn't made a decision yet. Most recently, there's rumors about him in Williams. There were rumors about him in Audi. I don't know what happened to those, but I guess where do you put all of these drivers right now that don't have a home for next year in terms of where do you actually have a clue where someone might be?
Shuffle the deck.
I don't know
Shuffle
if
the
I have
deck for
any.
us, please.
Well, I think that Carlos Sainz held out for the 9 out of 10s. He has his moment right now. He's a good-looking guy. He's on the market. He turns heads, and so he had that period at the beginning of the season where he was the prettiest girl at prom. And I think instead of then taking out that nice girl who had been so nice to him all semester and just treating her right and signing that Audi deal, I think he went after the 9s. So he went after the Mercedes and the Red Bull contracts and then dithered too long. And there was reports of a little bit of a falling out then between Audi's representatives and Carlos Sainz's representatives. And then you go, well, has he blown that one? And then now he's going to talk to Williams, and B, Williams is not only candidate. So I think Audi was strong that they wanted Sainz. They really, really wanted him, put the time in, put the commitment in. And then he went chasing after other people higher up the grid. And now if he goes to Williams, it's then a buyer's market, because I think Williams can have their pick, really. They could probably get Sainz in, or they could have signed Ocon already. I think that would have been a good signing. Potentially they could have lured Gasly away. You've got Yuki Tsunoda, who I think is out of contract at the end of this season as well. I think should we do middle-aged people Googling
We're a
things?
big Yuki Tsunoda podcast, so.
Oh, good. Yeah, correct.
Yes,
he's a great driver, and I think he's got options as well. If you look at the midfield, he's probably not going to go to Red Bull or Mercedes, but he's got options down the grid. Williams could do worse, and Honda have already said they would support him in going forward in his career. So he's going to come with a bit of money as well, which Williams like, because I think, it's my opinion, I can't prove it, I think they get money with Albon. They definitely had money with Sargent. So if they're giving up the Sargent money, which also has been hidden to the point that I can't definitely claim that's true, then they might need to replace that with backing. So Carlos Sainz is probably going to cost money. Could they get the same performance out of Yuki Tsunoda, who comes with a bit of Honda backing, who comes with a bit of funding, and obviously then you've got Ocon as well as a talent option. So Sainz is not probably in the position he would have been at the beginning of the season when Leclerc had a brake issue, and then there was the hero story with the appendixes and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think he's probably in a weaker position in the driver market now.
Please don't put Yuki on Williams. Don't do that to my lad. Don't do that.
Where do you want him to go? You want him to stay?
I want him to be successful. That's all I want. I want Yuki to be happy. And if Williams makes him happy, Yuki, you go to Williams. That's fine. If that's what makes you happy. Watching him struggle is gonna kill me. but you know,
Yeah, this is the thing. You're making an assumption which is offensive to delusional Brits that Williams aren't about to make a
make the
comeback.
turn. James is there. James is there.
And even he's like, yeah, we got a lot of problems over here. We're gonna take a while to fix these.
Every time somebody brings up a problem at Williams, James Foles goes, "That's the least of our problems. Whatever the problem is, the driver can like."
You think that's our biggest problem?
Right. The driver can fly off the track and into a canal, and he'll go, "Well, that's just another one to add to the list."
He's not had the team principal training brief. He hasn't seen the video of how you're meant to like deny everything, gaslight everybody.
Yeah, no, you're right. He's not good at gaslighting yet.
So in the Monaco Grand Prix, they kept asking him on the Sky crew, and they were saying, like, James, could you pull a sneaky undercut here? And he goes, no, we just got to get everyone's just getting through to the end. And they went, okay, but what about these things and these things and those things? And each one he just kept going, no, none of those things will happen. It's where do you think we are? He was almost saying to the Sky team, where do you think we are? We're not at a kid's birthday party. We're at the Monaco Grand Prix. Nothing's going to happen. But he had completely failed to disguise the fact that they had, in fact, sorted out or had been speaking to several drivers, and they had pretty much decided it wasn't going to be Logan Sargent. So he was asked about Logan Sargent and said, oh, no, we haven't made any decisions. It's in his hands. He's got to show us the results. Then they talked about talking to other drivers, and he basically went, yeah, we'll have some news for you in a few weeks. You go, what? So you're not going to have news that Sargent's staying, though, are you? You're going to have news of which of those drivers you've been talking to is going to them. Oh, Bottas as well. That's a legit option, too.
Our guy, Spencer, I'm sure you saw this weekend, he finished in second place in a bike competition, a gravel bike competition where I think they raced like 100 miles or something like that. He finished second in the 30 to 39 age group. That's Valtteri Bottas, of course. So, like, he's got an off week in Formula One, and he's like Verstappen at this point where I'm like, I feel like they're like racing bikes to Valtteri and sim racing to Verstappen are now their full-time jobs, and they're just like part-time F1 drivers. They're just doing that on the side. It's wild.
Oh, you got it. By the way, you have to know that race that he did in Kansas, like, that's the 108-mile unbound gravel race. It is gravel cycling. So it's, if you've ever ridden a bike and you've taken it as fast as you can, and you're doing that and you say, this is nice, but what I'd really like is if the surface was absolute shit. And I did it for 108 miles. That's what that race is. And he was
crazy.
And he was podium. He was podium, not just in a cycling race, but in one that is notoriously unfun, monotonous, difficult, and painful.
Doesn't it sort of suggest that Formula One's not that hard? Because these guys have all got these really energy-consuming hobbies.
Or it suggests that to be a Formula One driver, you have to be a very well-rounded athlete. So it's possible to be good at other things. Like, we know that a lot of F1 drivers are good golfers, and they're good at other very paddle, other sport hobbies that they have, because they're just such well-rounded, good reflexes.
Sure, but I don't think you have to be. So Vettel's hobby was saving the planet. I hope he's doing well with that, by the way, because we could really use with a big W in that regard. But I don't think Perez is out doing Iron Man stuff, is he? I think it feels like Perez has a really good time most of the time. Kimi Räikkönen certainly wasn't doing that stuff, and he was okay in a Formula One car. But yeah, generally the kind of people who are going to do that are people who are rounded athletes anyway. But George Russell was boasting about how after the Monaco Grand Prix, posted videos himself in the gym saying, burning off some of that excess Monaco energy. And you go, at least pretend, because the whole thing with Monaco is it's 2 hours of concentration. They're on the knife's edge. And this year, all the drivers went, no, it was super boring. Yeah. Had to go to the gym afterwards. I was doing Pilates in the cockpit, focusing on my pelvic crunches. No.
Yeah, they would all be really good at Pilates because of the core workout aspect of it. That's a good call on Pilates, Spanners.
We have an actual racing question to ask, which is, with all of that extra energy, is the rest of the field legitimately catching up to Red Bull? Is that something that we're going to find out, say, in the next 4 weeks?
Yeah, hope so. It does seem like it. So, one theory is that Red Bull have been having as many problems as anybody else. It's just that with the gap in ultimate pace, you haven't noticed. If they've struggled on a Friday, you just wouldn't have noticed because they're still top of the leaderboard. So who cares? Was it last year or 2022 or 23? Verstappen spun on his own in the lead of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Just on his own, had a spin, not pushing, and that mistake was not punished at all because he had a 10, 15-second lead. Whereas suddenly, is it a coincidence that the pace gap is closer and we're noticing all these Red Bull errors and all these problems that they're having? It literally just could be that we're now aware of them because of the pace gap. But they said they had a correlation issue specifically on the street tracks where their simulator said, hey, no, those curves are fine. Don't worry about it. And the curves were like, nah, we're here and we're going to make our mark. And so they had that correlation issue and struggled there. But in general, even on not the bumps, they seem to have been having issues just getting their setup in the window on a Friday. And I think we're probably only noticing that because the teams have genuinely caught up. So McLaren have gone early with their upgrade package and looked really impressive. Whereas in the background, you had Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari waiting a little bit longer. So if you look at the Aston Martin effort, it looks like it's failed in every area. So I think they're out of it for a bit. It doesn't look like they've got a plan B to come in. So the teams who are yet to show their whole hand with this round of upgrades are Mercedes, who are promising the world once again. But, fool me once, shame on you. What's this, like the 8th time? Fool me 8 times, shame on me. So I've sort of given up hope, but they have changed their whole philosophy from the front wing backwards. And that's what that new upgrade with George Russell is, the start of that new direction. So Ferrari really is the big one because they seem to have yet to come in with their, okay, here's our, European big upgrade package, and they're already up there looking good. So that's kind of the hope for the field closing up. As nice as it would be for the McLaren story to continue, I feel like, they can nick a result, but the real hope, if you want a genuine title fight this season, looks to be Ferrari and Leclerc. It depends how well this package is going. Unfortunately, just the races we've had, they could be a delusion. So you've had Imola, very tight and twisty, Miami, semi-permanent facility, the streets of Monaco, really unrepresentative. We're going to have potentially a wet Montreal Grand Prix, which won't tell us anything about the standings. But then you've got 7 European purpose-built racetracks, and that is probably going to be the meat of our season here. So when we get to the end of that, get to summer, or get to the end of when Silverstone, I need to look
July.
at
It's like the second weekend of July, I think.
Yeah, but we've got basically Monza, Zandvoort, Spa, Hungary. We've got Spain. We've got Silverstone. We've got this big lump of European traditional tracks, and we'll see at the end of that. I think we'll get a picture of if the gap has closed. But I feel like it has, and I want it to have done after the last 2 seasons. So why ruin that hope that's making me happy with anything else? I say let's just blindly hope that it's true until the European season proves us wrong.
I'm with you. The vibes are good right now. Let's ride the good vibes.
Yeah, it's like death, isn't it? What's the point in worrying about it? Like, worry about it when you get there. Don't spend your whole life worrying about it.
I just want to read this quote from Mercedes engineering director Andrew Shovlin, just in case you wanted to know what further upgrades or how close they are to solving it. He likened the squad situation to that of having too small a duvet, talking about where then they're trying to adjust the car for corners, straights, etc., in that it covered either the toes or the head, but not both. Yeah, but not both.
That sounds like a European duvet. I feel like everything's so small there. You got your little toilet and your little shower, your little bed.
Oh my God.
It's true.
You're like, I need a big toilet. I need one of them American-sized toilets. I need me a.
And my toilet better be the size of a Ford F-150.
I was so stunned of the size of your cars in general. Like, do you know that your car sizes are insane?
Yes, yes, it's disturbing, and it's because we have so much shit that we have to take everywhere with us because we are constantly consuming
I
things.
couldn't believe it. Like you've got
Constantly.
just like one dude just driving around in a bus-sized pickup truck.
Yeah.
And he's not on his own. You go into a car park, you go, what is going on here? And then go back to Europe and look at it. Looks like little model cars driving
Tiny
around
cars.
everywhere.
Yeah, wait until you hear about the tax credits that people get for having those giant ass cars. It's gonna. Whew. Anywho, speaking of Mercedes, real quick, we did have a Lewis Hamilton Hot Ones collab last week. I'm not sure, Spanners, if you're familiar with Hot Ones. I'm sure you saw this on your timeline at least.
Yeah, I don't like watching people eat.
So you once said that during a race, you'll become one with the car, which made me curious. When are you most in conflict with the machine that you're driving? Like
right now.
What?
So do we think he's throwing shade at Mercedes there? Or do we think he's talking about his like GI tract because he's eating hot wings?
I think that was a shot at the Mercedes and how uncomfortable he is. And he has sort of checked out. So this is the notice period, isn't it? It's an awkward notice period. And I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan, so it's disappointing to see him driving like this and sort of not being angry. So I would previously have been disappointed of like, oh, why are you complaining all the time? You know, get your head down, a bit more positivity. But now the wheels could fall off that Mercedes and he'd get out and go, check that out. Like, hope George does okay. It's a bit casual at the moment.
Well, he was pissed about the miscommunication with the outlap last week in Monaco. He didn't throw a fit over it, but he wasn't happy, right?
No. But imagine 2021 Lewis wouldn't have taken that as well.
The Stan army would have been assembling with.
Well, this is it. And even
torches.
the Lewis Hamilton fans, the Hamfosi, are not getting really that irritated or invested in the competition because Russell is beating Hamilton 7-1 at the moment. And Hamilton seems to be going win or bin with results. So if he can pull something off that will just nick him a front row or nick him a podium, he will go for that. And I think he's happy to lose 7 or 8 of those bets in the hope that one of them will come off and that you can have one good day. And it's almost like if that miracle setup doesn't come off or that miracle qualifying lap doesn't come off, then he's not bothered. It's all or nothing because why not?
I'm already thinking about the fits. I'm already thinking about late Lewis Hamilton era Ferrari team fits. They're going to be incredible. Runway won't even describe the outlandishness of what Ferrari Lewis Hamilton's outfits are going to be.
And he was great on Hot Ones. I mean, Spanners, you need to watch. I know you're a Hamilton fan. You need to watch it.
I've seen the odd clip. It's quite funny that he said he peed in the car in Singapore because he had previously called drivers out for doing that and said, you know, don't be a baby, you can wait. And then he stopped saying that. So
he did it one time because he had to do it.
Honestly, in Singapore, how would you know? How would you know?
True.
How would you know? You're already soaking wet. Like you might as well.
I had just assumed they had some kind of, you know, pad down there.
Catheter.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It's like a sponge. Because I wonder with endurance, you know, people are doing 3-hour stints in endurance driving. You've got to really manage yourself well to do that. And then you go, and then as soon as you need to pee and you're doing something intensive, it sort of ruins that whole experience. I can't eat dinner if I need to pee. I have to go and to clear that out. So I can't imagine doing a 3-hour endurance stint. But yeah, I also don't think we needed to hear him say that he did that while eating chicken. So I think you lot need to find better entertainment.
Chicken.
You know, if you watch.
Oh, he's a vegan.
He's a vegan, so he was eating and by the way, chided Sean, the host, for eating regular wings, saying he could have saved thousands of chickens' lives.
Yeah, that's our guy.
Yeah, that's our man right there. I guess the final question I have is this: who among the field that we have not seen featured yet on the podium could steal one? And I do not mean anybody that we have heard from either the big 2 or big 3, depending on how you count them, but a driver who on a good day might get a third And that might be the highlight of their career to this point.
Okay. Oh, let's look to the Montreal Grand Prix then. So what we need here is we need a real mixer-upper of a race. So the last time we had a podium like that, let's go for the Hungarian Grand Prix 2021 with the Bottas bowling, if we remember that. So Bottas lost his aero behind Norris in the wet, I think, missed his braking point, locked up, took out, I think, Norris, Verstappen, and Perez all in one go. And that left, who did it leave up front? I think it left Vettel fending off Ocon, or Ocon fending off Vettel.
It might have been Baku, but yes, I remember.
Yeah, so you need some
Was
kind
it
of...
Hungary? I don't remember.
Well, Hungaroring was the bowling, for sure. I'm gonna look
okay.
up the Hungarian GP 2021 while I do that. But that's what you need, is some kind of real mixed up race, or a 1996 Monaco Grand Prix with only 6 people finishing and a point going to...
Oh, you're right. It was Ocon that won that one.
Oh, Ocon, there you go.
Yeah,
And
the SD Bestie, yeah.
that led to then Panis in 1996 scoring that point for 6th place. So you need something like that, I think, this season for like a real story of like a Sonoda podium or a Stroll podium. But I would actually go for Stroll, because when there's those chaos, all his good results have come from utter chaos up ahead, and he has sort of just sort of pootled his way around to get a result. So I think if you're going to get a crazy race, a crazy podium, I think let's put Stroll. I'll go for a crazy Stroll podium. And then everyone who has been ignoring his results for years and years and years will turn around and go, see, I told you. What say you now, fool, denier, hater?
Oh, that's a great call. Yeah, he's got as many race wins as Charles Leclerc this year.
Oh, people arguing in bad faith with stats like that drives me absolutely wild. Like the amount of people
Sports is all about, baby.
who will still say Kubica beat George Russell at Williams because Kubica got the 1 point, even though Russell had been comfortably... It drives me absolutely nuts. And I get to the verge of blocking those people because you're trolling so hard. Do you know what? I'm doing you a favor blocking you, because I'm going to assume that you're not stupid enough to believe that statistic that you just fired at me. Therefore, I'm giving you the credit of assuming you're a smart troll, and I'm going to block you.
And at long last, by the way, if that happens, finally, Lance Stroll will get a break in life. So I'm pulling for him. I'm pulling for the underdog at last.
Any final thoughts? Any venting about America that you want to do to us on before you leave?
Not at all. No, not at all. I've
It's a safe space.
Always from a distance, I've been a lover of American culture, a lover particularly of American pop culture and comedy. And I know Brits are really guarded about their comedy prowess with Fawlty Towers and Monty Python and all that kind of thing. Right, so don't tell the king I said this, but I genuinely, for 20, 30 years, American comedy has absolutely spanked UK comedy. You know, your sitcom machines, take the good with the bad, but they're amazing. And then you've got your improv, the SNL guys, Conan O'Brien, absolute hero, but really grew up searching for those Jay Leno, Conan O'Brien type things. Your movies are obviously world renowned. And then you go there and you kind of realize, well, yeah, the culture is like that. You guys, you're out to have fun. You gather at stuff and do things well and go, yeah, the people at this place are supposed to be entertained. So let's, entertain them. Like at NASCAR, you go, yeah, just come on in, everyone, just come in the pit lane. It's fun. Yeah, you should be able to see stuff. There's a weirdness in European culture of you can only have fun by accident, and in America, people have fun on purpose. And I found it a joy. I found people really friendly, and they will tell you their political opinions, by the way, whether you want to hear them or not. Every time I got in an Uber, I can tell you the exact political opinions of every Uber driver I had.
Oh, no.
So that was weird because, say an Uber driver would say to me, what do you think of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle? And I go, uh-oh. By saying whether I like them or dislike them, I'm telling you the rest of my politics. So, because it's such a binary thing. But quite a lot of you guys seem to wrap your identity and personality in your political opinions. Whereas, here it might be a little bit more coincidental on the side. I could know Dave for 2 years and not know who he's going to vote for. I don't think that happens in America. But I just honestly, I loved it. I loved it. I love the flair. I love showing off. I love being able to show off and have fun. So yeah, no, I think I've got 2 more American dates coming back. I think I'm lined up to come to Circuit of the Americas as well,
Nice.
and to have a Missed Apex event there, which you'd be more than welcome to come and join me at. So yeah, I was in love with America beforehand, and I'm more in love with America now.
Wow,
If you want to
maybe
see you want to see some big old cars. Okay, Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a Texas Georgia game that weekend too, I believe, Spencer.
Oh,
Maybe we got to do
heavens.
a DNF
Yeah.
trip to
You're
Austin
in for a mess.
and hang out with Spanners there. Well, I actually, before we go, when I was at Miami, one of the marshals, as Donald Trump was walking by, turned and said, "Everything he touches turns to gold," to me and like a group of F1 spectators. And I was thinking about him the other day when the verdict came in for the felony Trump trial. But that was, you're right. Even the marshals at an F1 race will tell you their political opinions, even though you didn't ask for them. And that's America, baby.
Oh, at NASCAR, there was so you have like some controversy with flags. Yeah, so there's some flag stuff there.
Mhm.
And so, someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, so that flag, huh?" And you go, "Oh no, that feels like a test." My goodness! He just turned to him and said, "I have no strong opinions about any flags." Pass. I don't want to say.
Oh, dear.
All right. Well, that has been Spanners from the Missed Apex podcast. You can catch them there or catch them live when they do their show in Austin. Hell, we might be there too. Who
Let's do
knows?
it. Let's do it. Let's have some beer and some, what do you call it? A car bomb. Let's do that.
Yeah. We'll have an Austin car bomb. I don't even want to know what that might be, but it's going to be Texas size. So gird your
It's a
loins.
breakfast taco in a stein of beer.
That's
Oh,
right.
my-
Breakfast taco in a beer with a shot and then like a gun.
Oh,
In a
sorry.
ranch water.
I owe an apology to America. I thought I'd had tacos before, and then I had tacos in Miami, and then I
yeah,
realized I'd never
what
had
you have
tacos.
in the UK is not a taco.
Oh my god, tacos! I love tacos even more than I did before, and I'm set to break my new personal tacos in one sitting record.
All right. So go support Missed Apex so they can increase their taco budget to truly obscene American sized levels. I am Spencer Hall. That is Jessica Smetana. This has been DNF. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week after Canada.